Luckily, we don't have to do much already. The National Pension System and the FRBM Act create the framework. We just have to stick to them with some modifications as the situation warrants. And the constitution makers already made a provision, because please remember, unlike some other countries in India, the states cannot go bankrupt. While for convenience sake, we talk about state and the union, etc., there's only general government debt. And the union government, the government of India, is the guarantor of all the debt of India, Indian governments, and the guarantor of the credit to the union, credit of India. And recognizing that, the Constituent Assembly, after a great deal of debate, they incorporated several provisions, including Article 293 of the Constitution, by which every state, when they want to incur a debt, they must take the prior approval of Government of India. The reason is, ultimately, Government of India is the guarantor. And the Government of India has the duty to impose conditions for the larger fiscal health of the country under Article 293(4). Similarly, some of you might have heard provisions for financial emergency. The government can declare a financial emergency under Article 316. And then automatically all the budgetary control goes to Government of India. All money bills have to be approved by the Government of India. And Government of India has the power even to reduce the salaries and pensions and allowances. So these extraordinary provisions are deliberately created in the Constitution itself, original Constitution, because they understood what the problem is. We just have to implement. So here are some, there's a lot more detail, but I don't want to go into details. This is more, I think this is the last slide. The first is, we must have a golden rule, as many countries have. That means you do not borrow for the current expenditure. If you can go back to the slides, last slide. We do not borrow for the current expenditure. That means borrowings only go for new investment. That means the states and the union must maintain a revenue deficit of zero, no revenue deficit. It will not happen overnight, but over 2-3 years. Union also has a problem, except the union is generally more responsible, but because of some structural reasons, union also has a deficit. This year, for instance, the union government revenues are 27 lakh crores. Transfers to states, employees' salaries and pensions, and interest payments, they are far in excess of 27 lakh. There is a 5 or 6 lakh crore deficit only with these things, structural deficit. So the first rule is, we must quickly come to revenue deficit zero. What you do within that is your business. But you cannot borrow without creating assets or without investing. The second is, if the states want to give better, more generous pensions, it's up to them. But they cannot postpone the liability to next generation. You now put that money in a pension fund on a discounted cash flow basis to meet the future pension payments. Otherwise, no government has a right to now declare something and without creating assets, create a burden on the next generation of tens of thousands or lakhs of crores of rupees of pension burden. That's what's happening in India for temporary political gain. And Government of India is absolutely well within its duty and right to impose that condition under Article 293(4). And we also have to look at progressive increase in retirement age, because in keeping with the overall lifespan increase, if we don't increase retirement age, we are not using very productive people with experience effectively, and B, the pension burden mounts for fewer years of service, and increasingly governments are resulting to populism by increasing the recruitment age. Earlier, they used to join at 28, 21 in government. Today, 28, 30, 33. You retire at a certain age, and then lifespan is expanded. Therefore, pension, index-linked, unlimited liability. So instead of that, progressive increase retirement age. Within these broad parameters, we can certainly sit with the employees in the states and the union and give them greater confidence, because, all right, how do we make sure that the money is not lost, that is not invested in a very risky manner? How do I get freedom as an employee to decide where my money goes, how to invest it? All these are perfectly reasonable things, and we can work out. But fundamentals to protect the country and its future, that we cannot borrow for current expenditure, and that if you want to incur liabilities, you cannot transfer the liability to the future. You have to actually fund it today, so that the cost of decisions is not concealed. Today, what's happening is catastrophic decisions are made for political gains, but the cost is concealed and borne later. Take away that incentive and increase retirement age. And this is, as I mentioned, the most important danger facing the country. Several states, West Bengal did not join this program, the only state that refused to join the NPS. And now many states, including Himachal Pradesh, Punjab, if you noticed, Himachal Pradesh and Punjab have very high debt and very high Obviously, if you remember the ratios and the graphs, they have the worst fiscal picture. And yet they embrace the old pension system recklessly for political reasons. Himachal, Punjab, Rajasthan, um, Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand, now Karnataka. The latest is Karnataka. I hope they will come back. We are all trying very hard to persuade the government and the key functionaries that it's destructive of the state. But the other day, to my horror, the new chief minister Siddaramaiah, who is a very professional man, he knows his finances, as finance minister several years, presented several budgets, but even he felt compelled to give a public statement that he will give OPS, etc. So unless we wake up, the rest of the 97% of the population are the enlightened government employees who want to protect the future. We certainly want the employees to have security after retirement, but not at the cost of the country. There is a country. There has to be fairness, equity, intergenerational equity. And unless we wake up, we realize that it's our battle. It's not somebody's private battle. I think we're in a mortal danger in a country where electoral success is all that matters, the future be damned. That's why I thought this very focused issue I wanted to bring to your attention with some data. There's a lot more data available. Actually, in the next few days, we're going to print a detailed booklet, a lot of logic and evidence, and also lots of data, etc. And I want all of you to please look at it. Raise your voice in whatever manner you can as citizens. We are citizens and taxpayers. We have to protect our children's future. And if this country does not get this 6-7% growth rate in the next 20-30 years on a sustained basis, I really shudder to think of the future. I'm a great optimist. I'm one of the greatest optimists of this country in the past 30 years. But optimism does not mean romanticism. You must look at the realities, and when the reality is pretty distressing, we have to try and change that. And this is a modest effort in that direction. I will floor open to you.